There it is. Numbers are going up means we're recording. So, hey, everybody, welcome to the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. I'm always the Sustainiac. This guy's always the Sustainiac too, but now he's on the show, so it's official. You have been dubbed a Sustainiac now. His name is Alex James. Is that right?
That is correct,
Or do
sir.
you keep the K in there as well?
I feel like it differentiates me. Having two first names, it gets to be confusing at times. People call me
Yeah,
Jim.
mine too. Michael W. Vincent is usually how I sign things, right?
Oh yeah,
But so, anyways, you're an entrepreneur, a business development leader, environmental advocate. Obviously, I've stalked you on LinkedIn, right? That's how we have come to know each other. Me hounding you and saying, "Hey, come on in here. Let's talk about what you're doing in sustainability." So this is fantastic, dude. So tell us. I mean, we've met and we've talked about Terran Industries, obviously a little bit before this. So how, talk about what is Terran doing? Now let's get into you and how you got involved.
yeah. Really appreciate it. I'm super happy to be here. So thank you for having me, Michael.
Sure.
The more I get to know you, the more I enjoy your work and history and experience and everything you've done for
You're
logistics,
making me
freight,
you're making me blush.
sustainability. I can't help it. Got to talk you up too. Um, Terran Industries is a tech-enabled consultancy with proprietary framework for sustainability, and they've got a network of over 4,000 vetted uh, solutions from a variety of organizations, startups, to help match clients' needs. So everyone's very unique. We're all our own unique fingerprint and footprint, and essentially, what we're trying to do is create sustainable businesses through sustainability. And we want to be businesses' first and last stop for solutions to ethically sustain them into the future.
Gotcha. So it is. It's like a resource for businesses, but a resource for even like. Let me turn up my mic here a little bit. It seems like it might be a little low, but
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, that's a little better. The for like the chief sustainability officers that are out there, right, and those type of things, right? Is that what we're talking about? It's like a like a repository of information as data, or is it just connections, etc.?
There's a lot to it. So, I mean, Chief Sustainability Officer, they could certainly benefit from our network and our work, where we would be more of an extra add-on or a support function to them in terms of finding solutions, helping them have their projects come to fruition. Because a lot of time, their efforts are spent on reporting and all the boring stuff, regulatory items,
Oh yeah.
things that we're more than happy to do to help either free them up or to help with those projects and have those come to fruition. And we're talking things from like, scope 3 to circularity solutions, sustainable materials, supply chain risk management, energy efficiency, renewables, so on and so forth. Even helping to avoid greenwashing or any kind of penalties or legal implications, depending on what country they're operating in or the regulations that they're up against or coming down the pipeline.
Through connecting them with people that can do auditable data verification and that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, so
As
it's
far
either
as the
through
green.
connection or through our own group of and deep bench of scientists in our impact team.
Oh,
So
okay. So
a
you guys actually provide that service of I guess it would be certification or kind of audit, like I just said before. I don't know why I
yeah,
wouldn't use that word again. Auditing to make sure, like, hey, you guys are good. You shouldn't have to, worry about greenwashing, or at least advise them on what pitfalls. So you guys actually provide that type of consultancy.
yeah, we've got a really brilliant team of scientists and climate experts. Um, and if it's something outside of their scope or we need to bring someone else in, we can tap into that network of solutions and introduce them to the right people to make that happen.
So it's
Because
interesting. You're like the Geico of sustainability.
I like that comparison. That's good. Yeah, but think about like sustainability. It's such a broad scope thing, and it can get really messy and cloudy, and people don't know like where to start, or what's the right solution. Is this a good company that we're going to be working with? We've already put all those companies through those standards in that proprietary framework to
Mm.
know if they're actually doing what they're going to say, and provide actionable results that align with what we find to be ethically sustainable.
So now I'm thinking you're more like the Angie's List of sustainability. Or maybe
Well,
you're both. You're Angie's Geico's list of sustainability.
and if Angie can do the work herself too, to be a provider as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no, it's really interesting. I don't mean to make light of it. I mean, it's just it's needed because just in my experience of just trying to like source recycled plastics, right?
Hmm.
It, it is so hard to find. First of all, it's really hard to find a trusted source, right? Or somebody that still has it. Like you go on these boards and you look at this, you say, okay, I need a load of PET, ocean bound certified, et cetera, clear, whatever. Chances are the person or organization says, hey, we have this. They don't, right? Or it's gone already, right? I mean, it's or, well, I don't have that, but I have a load of used cooking oil for you. I mean, it's kind of shady, or I don't know. It's not. There's not a big structure to it. It's kind of still a nascent type of thing, even though sustainability has been around for a long, long time. It's just people like yourselves putting certification or research into it and creating structure to it that can be trusted is obviously much needed, and it's kind of it's a new concept, right? I mean, we're talking about publicly traded companies that have to have some sort of trust in the relationships they're building, otherwise they get tanked, and that's part of the hurdles or some of the hurdles in moving forward in sustainability, right?
100%. Yeah. You got to have that trusted partner, and we essentially become a matchmaker, especially if it's something outside of our scope, or um, they need something quick for a solution for a specific niche use case, where they could be doing something better. And
Mm.
honestly, there's projects too, and opportunities and solutions that are available to them that they might not even know exist. So if they give us, the back of the baseball card of their business and their operations across different business units and across the globe, we can provide them feedback on like, hey, here's where you have opportunities in this space, or in that proprietary framework that I was mentioning, trying to understand where they're doing great in this part, or they're really lacking in this other area, and we can provide, here's some suggestions for companies that we're working with, or solutions that we can provide you ourselves, that are going to provide this kind of an ROI. Because I mean, if you think about the word sustainability, people just relate that to climate, or global warming, things like that.
Yeah.
I think sustainability, we're just trying to change the perspective of sustainability as a business strength, right? If you're a sustainable business, that means you're going to be around for a long time. A
Hmm.
lot of companies in the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000, they're not typically hanging around too long because they're not future proofing their business. So if we can do that through ethical, sustainable solutions, then I think that's going to make the world a better place, and it's going to make business a better.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because that goes. There's in my mind there's like this. In my mind, there's no division, but yet there is a division. Okay, between business sustainability and the new use of the word sustainability, or it's not really new, but this new vertical that is now being uh, layered on to what the businesses should really, in my opinion, have been responsible for in the very beginning, but now they're being more held accountable. And what I mean by that is that the businesses, there shouldn't be a business if your main goal is just to make money for shareholders. Yes, that is a goal. I'm not anti-capitalist. I am a capitalist 100%, but I'm saying just to make money isn't good enough for me to to have a job, right? I mean, it has to be doing something good or providing something that people need or want, and is also not detrimental to their lives or the environment or the society, right?
Mhm.
Um, but that kind of layers on top of that. That is like this when people think of in sustainability in their business, like that is separate, right? Like, and it really shouldn't be. I guess what I'm saying is, the efficiencies that come along with just running your business correctly leads you towards sustainability in the environmental sense of the word, right?
Right,
And
yeah, it should be fully encompassed, and just to kind of bring up what you were mentioning before on creeping on LinkedIn, your statement in LinkedIn of "Live with intention always" holds
yeah,
true in that sense too. Like, if you are fully encompassing your business with sustainability in mind, it's going to show up in a lot of positive ways in other areas of your operations.
right. And so do you, so let me ask you, so I guess my division question is this. Do you help people, do they come, would they come to you and say, look, um, sustainability, we got to do something. What the hell is it? Here's our business. Where's our opportunities, right? And when you see that, are you looking at it from the lens of how do they immediately impact, scope one, scope two, scope three emissions, which everybody's mind immediately goes to, right? But also, like, their real estate infrastructure, their power sources, their all that type of stuff, which I guess is also directly related to that. But it's also, retaining resources, but also through like out their supply chain, and are they using renewable materials and that type of stuff within their organization, and are you looking at their actual efficiencies within their business, right? I mean, if they gain operational efficiencies, that in turn obviously reduces waste and reduces emissions and all that other kind of stuff. How deep do you go into the actual business operations?
Great question. Yeah, and it's fully holistic. So, alluding back to that proprietary framework that I mentioned, which I can't get into too much detail because we're honing in on the IP for that.
Right, right.
And it just takes a a bird's eye view and approach to their business using that framework and keeping that in mind for each portion of what they share with us, and then providing those opportunities and the solutions that are available to them, for really, such a great return on investment if they are going to move forward in whatever area that they're focused on. And then we can also peel back the layers of the onion to understand like other parts that maybe they hadn't even thought of before.
Gotcha. So it's is there and it is across the board with any type of industry. I mean, you guys aren't focusing on one type of industry, is that right?
We may be, we're taking a look at a handful of specific industries, which I
Mm,
can't speak to quite yet.
gotcha.
Um, just coming on board myself, but that will be revealed shortly. We've got a within those team of scientists and experts. We do have folks with very narrowed networks that would be
Gotcha.
really helpful to focus on those specific verticals or industries, as well as the ones that are having the greatest impact on the environment or footprint where they're not perhaps spending too much time or having enough focus on those areas where we can provide that value.
Right, and that makes sense. So I guess you've answered the question. You're not a bunch of environmentalists that are going to go into a business and know nothing about that type of business and say, "Well, here's where you're polluting and killing, the environment, etc." You're bringing in vertical or experts with that knowledge of that vertical to then bring in the sustainability knowledge as well to deal with those different verticals. So you've got experts in that vertical that can make these
Absolutely,
recommendations.
yeah. So having more context and understanding of the inner workings of that industry or vertical, coupled with the sustainability solutions, gives us a much better idea of how to make those matches of that vetted network and that proprietary framework.
Yeah, excellent. So, I was stalking you on, you know, because I want to know, something about you before we actually have these podcasts and do these interviews. But so, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, right? And you've done a bunch of stuff, and are still doing a bunch of things. So how did you fall into this, or was this like, is this like, yeah, I finally got to where I want to go, or was there this epiphany that, hey, this is what I want to do, or tell us about you, Alex. How did you grow into this?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And it's going to sound like a long and winding road, but that's just life, right?
Yeah,
I've really just followed my why and my heart for my whole life. Going into school, I went to Endicott College, which is up in Beverly, Massachusetts, on the North Shore of Mass, um, and went to school for entrepreneurial studies and marketing. So very broad scope of what I can do there and what I can bring in terms of value to businesses. Really had a growth mindset and background throughout my whole career, but across a variety of industries. So first industry I entered into was something I was always interested in, and you might be as well, but food and beverage with beer. And I was always interested in Zymergy. So that is the science of beer, if you're if you're
oh,
familiar.
is it really?
Yeah,
And what's that called again? What is it?
Zymergy.
Zymergy.
Yeah,
Okay, I was today
I,
years old when I learned that. That's cool. That's cool.
yeah. In high school science class, we were one of the classes and assignments that we had was to break down molecularly something that we were interested in. So I ended up brewing an English pale ale with my dad.
Nice.
And I think this is the only way I would legally be able to bring beer on site to my school. But I brought a couple bottles in
That's fantastic.
to share what we made and talk about the science of the beer. So I'm a bit of a nerd if you can't pick that up through that that interest level, going that deep into beer. But um, I ended up making a transition from a startup distributor in New Hampshire, the first one in like 50 years, and scaling that to um, across the entire state to a really good position. I think it was like 12 or 1300,000% in growth year over year. Uh,
Wait a minute. You were brewing. You were a brewer. You a
no, I was
oh.
distributing beer. So this was
Oh,
before.
okay. So you didn't create like the first craft brewery or anything.
No, I'm not Yingling or was it Anchor out in California?
Anchor, Wicked Weed, Goose Island. I can name them. I'm a craft beer snob. I'm a nerd. If it doesn't, it's not 7.5% ABV. I'm not touching it. It's got.
Yeah. So before craft was like really big, and I feel like I'm dating myself now. Uh, New Hampshire, none of the restaurants or convenience stores really wanted anything craft related, and they already had their distributors. And
Hmm.
we brought in Lagunitas, we brought in Maine Beer Company, we brought in Oscar Blues, Boulder Beer Company, Breckenridge. If it wasn't
Yeah.
craft, it wasn't in our portfolio. So I was helping to build the portfolio of breweries that we were bringing into the state, as well as distributing just new brands to these restaurants and stores, grocery stores, and C stores, and you name it across the 603, which is all of New Hampshire. Uh, and then from there, ended up getting recruited by Dogfish Head.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Out of Delaware, right?
yeah, slower, lower Delaware, as they call it. Um,
Those
and I,
boys can brew some beer down there, bro.
oh my goodness, they really can. That was a wild transition because those were like you were saying 7.5%. You're not doing it anything less. They were always up there with those.
They're the only people that can brew a beer at like 12.5% or 19%. It doesn't taste like crap. They're really good at it.
They are
I
really
mean, they're
very.
really good at it.
Although I'm not there any longer, I'm still quite loyal to the brand.
Yeah.
So you'll see me buying dog. I was buying Dogfish Head yesterday too. So
I think it's they got one of the best pumpkin beers too, as far as in the fall.
agreed.
Most of them taste like crap, but theirs is pretty good. They have a decent one. They do a
And they
good job.
use all natural pumpkins. They have since the start from like very locally sourced. So kind of true to what I believe in for sustainability and just like a small footprint. So it's none of that fake crap in there
Yeah,
uh, for flavoring or anything like that. But I agree, it is definitely one of the best pumpkin beers out there.
yeah. Wow. Look, you like. I thought you were cool, and you just went up like 10 levels because the whole craft beer thing and the dogfish head. What? So why did you? How did? I mean, is there more to that story? Or did you just leave? Just said, yeah, you know what? I'm going sober. I'm out of this business.
Well, I mean, outside of the health implications of being around craft beer all the time, I just didn't really see myself in the industry forever. Uh, so in
You
terms of
see, I imagine it as being one of those things where if I love to cook, right? I love to cook and I love food. I love to cook and I like to try new things and learn how to cook Thai food and French and Chinese and all these different things like that. And I'm from Ohio and I live now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I tell you what, I will put my barbecue and smoked brisket up against anybody in the South. I am great at it. But I would never do it as a career because I'd be like, if I'm smoking brisket 24 hours a day, every day, I'm just not going to eat it anymore. It's just drive me. And that's why I would never want to like work at a brewery like Stone or something like that because it'd be like, well,
it's lost
now
its luster.
I can't enjoy it anymore. Yeah, it loses its luster, right?
Yeah, everything in moderation, Michael, right?
Yeah, I get it. I get it. But that's kind of like, patience. I'm over that lesson already. I'm done with the patience.
Oh yeah.
I've learned it.
And the transition that I made was it couldn't have been any different than beer and getting out of the food and beverage space.
Yeah.
So I moved into be a futures consultant for energy, so electricity and natural gas. So this is my first
Really?
foray into the sustainability space because I was also working deals around renewable energy credits and power purchase agreements and things like that, or demand response, having on-site demand generation so that companies could actually essentially ghost the grid when you had peak demand because there's these things called capacity tags uh,
Yeah.
where on typically the hottest day of the year you have the grid, that specific grid, like New England ISO or Independent System Operator, or like PJM, which covers part of Ohio too, where it peaks with the highest amount of demand. And whatever your capacity tag is on that day or that specific hour at that peak, there's a multiplier that's already been auctioned out previously that you multiply it by, and you have to pay a certain amount of money for that, whatever your usage was at that specific time frame. So we
Right.
would help companies manage that capacity tag by having on-site generation. So if they're a around the clock manufacturer or company that's using a lot of energy, we would help them get off the grid, power up their on-site generation, and then essentially they would lower that cap tag and save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
Yeah. So in a previous life in ocean shipping, my container freight station down in Miami in Midley Lakes had two massive diesel generators and a massive tank. We could actually sustain 500,000 square foot warehouse operation for a month without outside assistance. And it was done that way so we could continue to ship and support the islands, the Caribbean, if Miami were to be hit by a hurricane. Because being a major lifeline into the the islands. I mean, they don't have food, they don't have this if you're not running, right? They don't have any of that stuff. You don't just go down to the corner store and buy a new mop. It's not there unless we're running, right? And but ours was the energy authority there could remotely turn on our generator anytime they wanted to. Was the deal to avoid brownouts and that type of stuff within during the summer months. So,
Yeah,
so
that
at any
makes.
given time, they would just fire off. Go on. Yeah.
We talked about my friend that lives in St. John in a previous conversation, and
Yeah.
that the whole beach cleanup thing. You're making me think of when they got hit really bad by that hurricane. I'm not remembering which
Was it
one.
Wrong Way Lenny that came through and destroyed Charlotte a mile? Got to port and everything.
Yeah, that was the one that basically destroyed most of St. John.
Yeah, yeah, I think that
Uh,
was it. It
yeah.
might not have been, but I think it was a devil storm because it came from the west.
Mm.
It like looped back on them.
But yeah, it took out like all of their infrastructure around energy,
Yeah.
and they had to move from the island to North Carolina for. I mean, they've been in North Carolina for a number of years now, just because of that storm. But now they're slowly foraying their way back into St. John full time. But yeah, having that kind of stuff for emergent energy needs becomes really, really important, especially upon like emergencies like that.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. So you went from beer to energy. So I mean, I liken that what you were talking about to really like the deep freeze and what happened in Texas, right? I mean, with a number of years back where everything, the energy just stopped because of the deep freeze that went through there and some of the enormous electricity bills that occurred post or during that type of thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
is that the type of thing you were dealing with in the Northeast, or
We were domestically across the U.S. For clients.
yeah,
I would cover everything from New England to PJM to CAISO or ERCOT, which is Texas.
okay,
So is California. Really, any deregulated markets in that space. But
yeah.
yeah, having that on-site generation will help in.
But it was triggered by the futures cost, like the daily settled price. Is that what it was, or the hour? Was it a daily settled price? It was, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that's what would trigger the right. Is that how they used it as a hedging instrument?
Yeah, we would be. I was on the retail side of things, so helping to consult and advise my customers that they had these agreements that would go out till say like 2027, and then I was looking at prices in 2027 to say like, hey, this is actually the perfect time to buy your 2027 through 2030 gas or your 2027 through
I got you.
2030
Yeah,
electricity, based off of where that price is settling each day. So we
yeah,
had a wholesale arm as well, which is based out of Houston, and they had insights into the wholesale market. So we would match up suppliers, so like the Constellations or Direct Energies of the world, with these companies for their electricity or gas supply, and we would know if they were padding their margins. And we would just be like, hey, we know the wholesale price for that specific time frame in the future is X. You're charging Y. Can you meet us a little closer to that actual price?
yeah, yeah.
So instead of them, making buco bucks off of our client, we would help to, with that insight into the wholesale market, make sure that they weren't getting screwed over.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, we can talk about it offline because this is not about me, but I did actually, uh, myself and a group of guys created a futures, an instrument that actually traded. It actually traded like three contracts did trade before it failed, but um, we talk about that offline
I
sometime.
remember you actually talking about that in some previous conversations, and it sounded like a brilliant idea. It's just
It
uh,
really is. It's just the coalition or the partnership failed for whatever reason. We won't get into that on air, but yeah, it is, and it should be done. It really should. And I'm not going to get. We shouldn't. I don't want to get more into it because the people who were doing it with me before, I think, may have designs to try and do it again, and I don't want to. I don't want to thwart those because it is a brilliant idea, in my opinion. It's why I joined and said, "Hey, let's try and make this happen." But
no, I love
anyway,
it, and I also love what you're doing now. with ocean plastic
Well,
technology.
I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, and that's one of the things you're talking about in St. John. You were hiking through St. John and found this. Well, you can tell the story if you want to, but that's what our mission is, to fix that stuff, and we're going there. The machines will actually ship in another month to St. Thomas and St. John, so we'll be
I love it.
fixing that.
I'll tell you the beach where it is because it's very remote and hard to get to, um, but filled with trash and plastic. And we only made a small dent that day, um, but I think it's a wonderful thing, just to clean those up. So yeah, kudos to you on what you're doing in that space.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing, because this circles back to really what you're doing at Terran Industries, right? Is
Yeah,
is really because, what you did there, like you said, you made a small dent, right? I mean, and the efforts were real and they're there, and I've done it myself. But you realize that you haven't even begun to even breathe on the needle, let alone move it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you may have well as have done nothing. I mean, right? In reality, right? With everything that's there, right? The effort, because everybody's got to get involved. But then you realize that you've got to prevent that in the beginning, right? You
yeah,
got to turn off that valve before it gets to those beaches, the plastics or whatever it is. But you got to turn off that valve before it gets emitted into the atmosphere. You've got to turn off that valve before you've depleted all the natural resources, or mined ourselves out of rare earth minerals, or filled up all the old uh, uh, coal mines in the upper plains with windmill turbines blades, which somehow isn't landfill. Did you realize that? It's
it's
not landfill if you put the old blades inside of old coal mines for some reason. That's not a landfill. But I mean, so you. But getting back to, I mean, along that lines is communities can reach out to you guys as well, right? I mean, because you're bringing together all these different resources to look at ways to prevent the stuff that we're trying to clean up from happening. And that's what we're trying to do as well at OPT is we're going there and creating the convenient, efficient plastic recycling infrastructures to prevent that from happening. Now we'll process and take that and support cleanup, but our goal is to turn off that valve, right? Let's turn off that valve, and then the mop and buckets will really make an impact.
Yeah, governments, cities, municipalities, really big opportunity. There's a lot of solutions that could be had there. And to your point, like it's not addressing the symptom, it's addressing the root cause. So it's before it
Yeah.
becomes that major problem. You're getting to the root of how did we get here in the first place? You're diving deeper. You're peeling back another layer of that onion.
And it's huge because a lot of the things that you're trying to solve and I'm trying to solve are just the way society was created, or how we've accidentally created it, I guess, or maybe purposely. I don't know. I wasn't around doing this, and I wasn't in the boardrooms. Maybe there was these evil sinisters going, no, we'll just extract using waste, forget the circularity. And some of that is actually true, right? I mean, the story of the light bulb is actually true. It was built to not last. It was created to not last, right? The incandescent light bulb. There was a collusion and a colluded effort to actually make it non-circular, right?
Yeah.
It's a true
And
story.
and there's more money and profit in that, unfortunately, and money speaks, but you can't you're not gonna be able to maintain yourself as a business if you run out of resources or don't use them efficiently or properly, where you can't make those light bulbs anymore, right?
Right. Right. And so that transition is difficult. And that's why the way it is. And the point when you take it there is there's a lot of businesses out there, and I've had them on this program, on this podcast,
Mhm.
that people think are the devil. They're the plastics industry, the oil industry. They've all been on this podcast. And most of them are trying to, they realize that they've got to do certain things, and they're getting on board. Now, regardless of whether that's to maintain their shareholders' values or not, it doesn't matter. They're trying to do the right things in many ways, but in many instances, those of us out here demanding the change, right, or the increase in sustainability and circularity, are also demanding those conveniences and products and services that prevent that from happening at the exact same time. You know what I'm saying? We want that pretty new package. We want that cool new thing. When we walk into a supermarket or a retail store of any type, the cool shiny stuff grabs our eye, and that's what we buy. And that's the exact stuff that prevents the circularity, especially in CPG. Right? It kills it. So I don't know how you change that. I don't know if you've got the answer. If you do, spill it on us because we need it.
Honestly, I think it starts with design and it starts with systems. So, have you ever read Danella Meadows' Thinking in
No,
Systems? Really
no.
brilliant book. Kind of changed my perspective on systems because really everything is a system. Um, Ecosystems, our bodies systems, all these natural systems that were here before humankind was able to kind of manipulate things to create our own systems. It's just that we kind of fall into that trap of those systems of consumerism and kind of like what you're alluding to with a grocery store, like, oh my God, my eyes at this specific shelf level and this bright color, it's going to attract me to that brand, but
Yeah.
it's designed in a way that you can't break down those packaging materials in a way that it can be reused in the future. It's just for the purpose of someone buying it. So
Yep.
we're kind of stuck in that system of consume, throw away, one time use, or it's not circular. So we got to rethink the systems, the design of things, and I think that's really the root of it.
Yeah. It really is. So you've got you were in apparel, right? Collective Minds Apparel. You were
Yes,
in Pet Loyalty Incorporated, right? And you still are.
yes.
So, do we want to talk about those, or are those just side hustles? Do they are they meaningful to getting you into where you are right now? Or
Well, I got sidetracked there. Um,
okay,
we started jumping into the plastics and circularity, which I'm very passionate about as well.
yeah,
But I left the energy industry. I wasn't doing enough in the sense of those renewable energy credits and the things that were making a difference with the infrastructure of the energy space and the
yeah.
power that we consume across North America. So I all of my roles, I've been really fortunate in just meeting some brilliant people in different spaces. The next person that was inspiring me was in the software space, and I was always interested in software and how it worked and the inner workings of all that. So I ended up joining a startup that was solving user experience problems on Salesforce by creating a bespoke user interface and user experience for companies that didn't really have that sales or CRM focus in that CRM
Mm.
and wanted to see that data in a different light based off of what they were doing for their unique business unit or end goal. So I jumped into that, got introduced to startup accelerators in the innovation space. So I don't know if you're familiar with Mass Challenge out of Boston.
Mm.
Um, People that aren't in the innovation space, usually when I bring up Mass Challenge, they're like, "Oh, like the Pan Mass Challenge where you're biking." Like, no, that's not at all the same. But they are a startup accelerator that doesn't take any equity from your startup, but they've got a variety of different uh, Fortune 500 and other really large government entities and businesses as partners who come in to view these startups and see if they're going to solve any specific problems for their business or business units where they could either have some kind of merger and acquisition or uh, take that idea and apply it to a specific problem that they're having that they're trying
So
to
is it
solve.
like like almost like a pre incubator type of thing?
Yeah, the people at Mass Challenge are poking holes in your business plan,
Right.
figuring out the gaps or the problems with what your offering is, making it better, providing ideas, asking the right questions, and that space really invigorated me because there's just like palpable energy in these rooms and with these speakers and roundtables and conversations you're having where people are so passionate about the work that they're doing
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
problems they're solving, which are all very needed. And it was a lot of fun. We ended up winning gold back in 2018, and I really loved being around that innovation minded and like network professionals within that space, and uh, still actually close with a lot of those people at those larger companies today. Actually, one of my co-founder for Collective Minds, which is a side hustle,
Mm.
mind you, and we wish we had a little more time for it, but spread pretty thin at the moment. That's based around mental health and really helping, because I mean that's been a major issue, especially after COVID. There's been a lot of separation of people and having any kind of cohesiveness or um, technology. So many different factors and variables that are making people a little more depressed or anxious or
Yeah, no, absolutely true. Study after study shows that. I mean, the impacts on the youth, et cetera, and even adults, the anxiety levels, et cetera, has definitely definitely increased. So yeah,
yeah.
mental awareness is definitely that something that absolutely needs to be more mainstream.
Yeah, and I collective minds. That's something that's not getting as much attention as I would like. But my co-founder and I are still in it to win it. It's really just more about the impact that we're having and the people that we're reaching to help them with their own mental health struggles. It's
Right.
specifically focused on um, on men and their place in society and the pressures on them. Because I don't know if
Yeah.
you know this, but like I think men are 4 times as likely to commit suicide,
Yeah.
uh, like 5 times less likely to go to therapy or get help or talk to somebody. So
Well,
there,
no, it's because you're a man. You're tough. You don't cry, man. You're not weak.
exactly, yeah, the machismo side of
Yeah.
things. So just kind of like touching into their own feelings and being able to talk to people and providing some support around breaking that stigma down.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a whole different conversation. So yeah, started that one while I was at that first software startup, and
Hmm.
once COVID hit, I was an in person having conversations, going to Mass Challenge, building business off of those relationships there, and that all kind of dried up. So I had another friend that I had met at Mass Challenge who had his own software startup, similar to ours, but much more niche in um, the pet industry and animal welfare.
Mm.
So we provided a unique overlay or UI on top of existing pet software, which I don't know if you've ever seen any pet software out there, like animal welfare software for
No.
animal shelters.
Uh-uh.
It's to help to track all the intakes, the outcomes,
Okay.
um, police custody, dispatch, animal control, any information that you're putting in there about the animals, the people that are visiting the shelters and adopting the animals, volunteering, working as dispatch folks, going out on the road, finding animals that are lost,
Mm.
returning them to their homes. All of that information goes into these CRMs, but they're about as old and antiquated as any kind of government software that you can imagine. So, like, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah, that makes sense that
needed.
they would be actually. There's not a lot of money being, well, there's not a lot of wealth that can be extracted from investing in it, I guess would be one of the reasons why they're not as advanced, I would suppose. But with pet trackers, et cetera, I would think that they would need to be fairly up to date, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very selfless, shameless, just down to earth, wonderful people industry where we got a
Yeah.
lot of folks just leading with their heart and not a really big budget. So
Yeah.
uh, it's been a very rewarding industry to be in. Um, but I found Terran Industries through a course that I had done. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Terra.do. Their goal is to educate and bring into the sustainability or climate workforce about 1 million people by 2030 or something like that. I could be misquoting that, so don't quote me on that one. But I went through a intensive 120-hour course with them, met a lot of really great people, stay in touch with a lot of them now. And that's how I got introduced to the CEO and founder, Ivana, based out of Australia. And really, she started Terran Industries, just a group of really pissed off scientists that thought things, thought things could be done better. So understanding my huge affinity for sustainability and the earth and the extra coursework that I'd done and the circularity economy course that I took through MIT, mixed with my knowledge and expertise within the SaaS space or software, really just seemed like a really great fit to be
Yeah.
working with her and helping to bring that idea to fruition, because I think it's really needed, really necessary, and a really great idea.
Yeah, I think it is a great idea, and you're right. It's 100 million employed in the space by 2030.
Wow, yeah, 100 million.
100 million.
I was way short by
Yeah,
100
no,
times.
that's. I just looked at their website.
Yeah, really great, great people. I love the ambition.
Terra.do, that is,
Yeah,
people. Check it out.
sure. So I
So
like a long-winded story to get to where I'm at now. So
no,
thanks.
I know, but it's interesting because there's a lot of topics there that need to be talked about. I mean, and specifically in sustainability, and it's interesting how all of them actually they actually connect. I mean, seriously, from the pet adoption and pet shelter software, et cetera, to the the electrical grid, et cetera, which is obviously a huge uh, cog in sustainability in our future with EVs or not EVs or hydrogen cars or not, or can we support this or can't we support that type of thing. All the way through it really is all interconnected, right? And um, but now we've gone full circle back to Terran Industries. So we're almost 50 minutes into this, so we got to wrap things up a little bit. So let's you're still in a bit of a stealth mode, right? So who do you want out there? Make the plea. Who do you want out there visiting you guys and looking at what you're doing? Are you looking for like customer advocacy groups to or customer input and use groups to further develop, or where are you guys at in the stage? What can we expect?
Yeah, I'd love to, and thanks for the plug. I really appreciate it. Looking to, I mean, every industry could use the help and the insights and expertise that we're providing, but we don't want to boil the ocean, to for a lack of better terms.
Right.
Uh, but we're also trying to avoid that as well, boiling the ocean. But we're looking for folks in the manufacturing, logistics, supply chain, um, consumer goods space. That includes food and beverage, or fast moving consumer goods, things like that, to have conversations with, to understand their biggest pain points. And that doesn't have to be industry specific. We want to make sure that we are focusing on very uh, you know unique industries with a very broad, or sorry, narrow focus, and just narrowing our aperture to start, because we really want to help make that big difference and have that impact, and be those experts in those spaces to start before we expand those offerings. So if anybody listening right now is open to a conversation, we'd love to check out what you're doing sustainability wise, understanding your footprint, providing some solutions and some opportunities that we think would be a good fit to sustain your business into the future.
Fantastic. Large companies, small business, enterprise people, or all of the above?
Um, SME, all of the above, but SME right now would be a good start to have conversations with folks in that space because I feel like they're typically not as focused on and don't have the resources or um, the bandwidth or energy to focus on that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
more than
Those
happy to
that need the
have
external bolt on intelligence, bolt on bandwidth to get this going. Those are beautiful. Fantastic stuff, Alex. I'm glad we had this talk. I've learned a bit more about you other than walking around St. John's and picking up trash on the island on the beaches, which we certainly appreciate. And Listen, we have to talk more as you guys come further out of stealth mode and start making more impacts and expand.
Yeah, and I'm excited too for the opportunity to have OPT be a part of our network as a solution for folks dealing with a lot of onshore plastic problems that you could solve.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely be doing that in the futures. But hey, thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure. And peace and love, my friend, and everybody. Thank you for downloading, listening, and checking out the Sustainiacs. And hey, we'll catch you next time. Peace and love.